January 7th kicks off an exciting spotlight lineup featuring Victoria Hand, Grandmaster, and Kate Bishop. Is Victoria Hand the tactician your deck needs, or should you save your resources? I'll also share a last-minute review of Rocket and Groot, dive into theory-crafted decks for Victoria, and help you decide if this cash is worth your keys. A quick recap on Rocket and Groot is he's a decent, it's a decent card. It has some uses in a number of different decks. Nothing that is super overbearing, despite all of the clickbait I'm sure you've seen by now. So if you like those decks, those types of decks, then sure, he is a strong card. You probably should get it. But otherwise, if those decks don't interest you, then you're safe passing on this card. Here's the entire Spotlight Week lineup. Victoria Hand, of course, is the new card. Grandmaster, I don't know if he's been in one of these before. I think he has. But Kate Bishop, definitely, this is her first time. And so we will step through each card individually and see how this goes. Victoria Hand has an ongoing ability that gives +2 to cards that were created in your hand. This immediately works with the shield cards, of course, that generate. There's Nick Fury, there's Agent Coulson, Maria Hill. There's also synergy with Moon Girl as well, because she generates cards in your hand. Collector, of course, with all of that card generation, you might as well. So there's some interesting synergies there. She does have an ongoing ability that, when played on the last turn, can completely surprise your opponent because they are not expecting these cards to get another +2 of energy or power. So you can fill a lane and then be able to buff it later if you want to play a little risky. Overall, I think this will be a decent card at 2 costs, 2/3. Even if it's just buffing one additional card that's a 2/5, another card that's a 2/7. So I think you can get some good value out of this card if you like the decks that she fits into. Speaking of those decks, at Series 2, there aren't many card generators. Let me know if I missed one. But all I could find were Agent 13 and Sentinel. Moon Girl, if you want to count her as well. Wait a second, and Mantis. I found a lot of them. So Mantis, I guess this is the best use for her with Victoria Hand. If you can try to figure out where your opponent is playing, you might want to save Mantis for later in the game. Don't play her super early unless it's obvious where they're going to play. We have a bunch of cheap costs to duplicate with Moon Girl. That way we can spam them later on in the game or get them out of our hands early. Sentinel, of course, generates other Sentinels. Shang-Chi is just good at any level you're at. And then there's the Devil Dinosaur and Iron Man, which both of those get buffed by Onslaught, or you can take the Moon Girl path with Devil Dino. I have a early CL deck video, a number of them for early CL players, and there is one, I think, with a Moon Girl Devil Dino Onslaught combo, because Onslaught and Devil Dino, you can double up Devil Dino's buff without needing Moon Girl. And Victoria Hand just gives the second Sentinel and third and subsequent ones +2. The Agent 13 card, which is going to be random. Collector's benefiting from all of this hand generation, and then Mantis stealing an opponent's card. So here's your Series 2 version. Now this one, I am super proud of. So I can't wait to fall on my face when this doesn't work. I cannot in good conscience create a Gambit deck. I hate that card.
They don't be knowing that lid ain't coming off without that dome gonna come off with it.
So we are going the Moon Knight route with Swarm. So the goal here is to discard Swarm as much as possible. And now we have 0/5s, which is, of course, fantastic. As long as you play Victoria Hand. There is the Iron Man and Mystique combo, because now once you have those two down and you just play 2 Swarms in their lanes, that's 20 power just off of those, 4 total Swarms. ignoring you discarding even more. Moon Knight, we only have 2 even cost cards, more or less, because you figure you're going to get Colleen Wing out of your hands and Victoria Hand before you play the Moon Knight, or just YOLO it. So really the Moon Knight just has a decision between Swarm and Shang-Chi. And if you're discarding Shang-Chi, that's typically going to be okay, depending on what else you draw into. Valkyrie is here because you can just Valka lane, and it's probably going to be full because of the swarms. Victoria Hand is buffing that lane, so you're going to go over the top even if they fill the lane. Stature is here for the Moon Knight synergy. Jean Grey on turn 5 could be potentially devastating for the opponent, just dictating where exactly they can play, while you have a decision between a free swarm in that lane and then just completely abandoning it and going somewhere else. I'm a big Jean Grey fan. Let's see exactly how this deck works. It probably will need to be tweaked. Rogue is here because Mobius murders this deck. So being able to rogue that and bring those swarms back down to 0 is very much needed. And this deck I would be super excited to try out if I end up getting Victoria Hand. Okay, this version, I don't know what to think of. I went with the Bast and Agent Venom route because that combo with Iron Man and Mystique is just fantastic. Victoria Hand, the cards she's buffing are the Hawkeye Kate Bishop arrows, the Moon Girl cards. Those 2? Yes, those 2. So it's not too much. We don't go full on into Victoria Hand card generation, but sometimes that's a fool's errand. You really just want to keep it kind of minimal to enable your deck to fully shine in all of the different ways that it can. Black Swan is here because we have a Rocket Raccoon, potentially a Nico, the Hawkeye's arrows, or any of those that we've duplicated through Moon Girl. Moon Girl can be clunky in a lot of decks I've tested her with. I'm on a mission to find a deck that I like with her in it. And so this would be one I would attempt. Now, Grandmaster was, I think I'll let his assistant put it best.
Trash.
So yes, he was trash when he was initially released. He did get buffed a tiny bit. And as more cards have been released, as more people have had time with him, he's kind of settled into a nice little niche, just duplicating an on-reveal card, getting it moved into closed-off locations, or just being able to completely out-juke your opponent. I kind of like this card a lot. He is difficult to recommend, so if it is a card you think you would like, he's very much worth it. If you don't like how it's used, if you feel like it would be tough to fit him into turns, then it's just not a card you would use. But he can go in many different archetypes, from destroy to discard to just on reveal decks. He has plenty of different uses across many different archetypes. So overall, Grandmaster is a very good card. Kate Bishop is a very good card as well. She is a card I severely doubted all through her season that she had. She was a season pass card, and I did not purchase that season pass, believe it or not. I will be correcting the mistake of her missing from my collection. Maybe? And so she honestly is the reason to go for this spotlight for me, because she is just a strong card. She fits in a number of different decks that I could definitely use her in. And so this is probably the highlight of the Spotlight Week if you do not have her. So we already heard I'm going for the Spotlight Week because of Kate Bishop. Now, will I be continuing for Victoria Hand? I actually will. The reason being is that Swarm deck, doing these videos is bad for my Spotlight keys, because some of these ideas, when I'm really forced to think them through, I really gravitate toward. And that's a deck I think is very fascinating and interesting to me. And also being able to pair her with Iron Patriot, which is the Season Pass card, there are some interesting synergies there in those types of decks. And this could be the season that puts those shield card generator decks back on the map and in a much more competitive spot. So ultimately, she's a card I will be going for, so I'll probably end up using 4 keys to get both her and Kate. To recap, Victoria Hand will be a decent to strong card. Grandmaster definitely is a decent card. And Kate Bishop, Hawkeye Kate Bishop, is a very good card as well. So overall, I think this Spotlight Week is very good, of course, depending on which cards you have. I do not think Victoria Hand is good enough to spend tokens on. So this really will come down to keys and what you have in your collection, and if you're willing to just roll the keys if you have enough on this set of cards. Thanks to the members of the channel. Thanks to everybody who's watched this deep into the video. It helps the channel grow, which I don't know if I want because I have a lot of interesting decks, I think, and it would be a shame if they became super popular and people started teching against them. So I kind of like that my decks can fly a little bit under the radar, and you all benefit from that as well with that surprise factor. And we'll see. Until next time.